The harsh neon lights of the Galactic Military Academy training room buzzed, casting a sterile glow on the assembled cadets. Among them stood Eva Rostova, a young woman from Earth, her fiery red hair a stark contrast to the muted greens and blues of her uniform. She was a long way from her family farm in Nebraska, but she was determined to prove herself in this alien environment. Her instructor, a towering Crovarian named Grok, paced before them. Grok was a veteran of countless interstellar battles, his scarred face a testament to his experience. His species was known for its brutal efficiency and unwavering discipline, qualities he expected from every cadet under his command. Today, we will be simulating a breach scenario, Grok's gravelly voice echoed through the room. Your objective is to secure the designated area and neutralize any threats. Failure is not an option. Ava's heart pounded in her chest. Breach scenarios were notoriously difficult, requiring quick thinking and flawless execution. She had studied the tactical manuals, memorized the sensor layouts, and practiced countless hours in the simulation pods. But she knew that nothing could truly prepare her for the chaos of a real breach. The cadets were divided into teams, each assigned a specific sector of the training room. Ava was placed on the Alpha team, along with a hulking Draxonian named Vor and a nimble Cygnian named Lyra. Vor was all muscle and bravado, while Lyra was quiet and analytical, her large eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. All right. Team, Ava said, trying to project an air of confidence. Let's stick to the plan. Vor, you take point. Lyra, you cover our flanks. I'll bring up the rear and provide tactical support. Vor grunted in agreement, while Lyra nodded silently. The team moved out, their boots echoing on the metal floor. As they approached their designated sector, the lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Breach imminent, Grok's voice boomed over the intercom. Engage! Red lights flashed and the room filled with the sound of alarms. Simulated enemy combatants, holographic projections of fearsome alien warriors materialized around them. Vor roared and charged forward, his massive fists smashing through the holographic figures. Lyra moved with fluid grace, her energy pistol, firing precise bursts of light. Ava took cover behind a metal crate, her mind racing. She activated her thermal vision, scanning the room for threats. A holographic warrior emerged from the shadows, its weapon raised. Ava squeezed the trigger of her pulse rifle, a bolt of energy searing through the air and striking the warrior in the chest. The figure flickered and disappeared. Nice shot, Rostova, Vor said, his voice filled with grudging respect. Thanks, Ava replied, her eyes still scanning the darkness. But we're not out of the woods yet. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the room. The lights flickered back on, revealing a scene of chaos and destruction. The training room was in shambles, debris scattered everywhere. Several of the holographic warriors were still active, their weapons firing indiscriminately. We've got multiple hostiles, Lyra shouted, taking cover behind an overturned table. Our position is compromised. Eva knew they had to act fast. If they stayed put, they would be overwhelmed. She grabbed a grenade from her belt and tossed it towards a group of holographic warriors. The grenade detonated, sending a shockwave that knocked the warriors off their feet. Move! 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 Eva yelled, leading her team towards a more defensible position. They took refuge behind a reinforced blast door, using it as a shield against the incoming fire. Ava accessed the door's control panel, trying to seal it shut. But the system was damaged, and the door refused to close. It's no use, Eva said, her voice filled with frustration. The door's jammed. We can't stay here, Vor said. We'll be sitting ducks. I have an idea, Lyra said, her eyes gleaming with determination. I can reroute the power grid and overload the door's locking mechanism. It'll take a few seconds, but it might work. Do it, Eva said. Vor and I will cover you. Lyra set to work, her nimble fingers flying across the control panel. Vor stood beside her, his massive frame shielding her from the incoming fire. Ava knelt down, her pulse rifle trained on the doorway. The seconds stretched into an eternity. The holographic warriors were closing in, their weapons spitting bolts of energy. Ava fired back, trying to keep them at bay. Vor roared, smashing, his fists against the blast door, creating a deafening din. Finally, with a loud crack, the blast door slammed shut. The holographic warriors were trapped outside, their weapons rendered useless. "We did it!" Eva said, relief flooding through her. But their celebration was short-lived. Grok's voice boomed over the intercom. "Simulation terminated. Rostova, report to my office immediately." Ava's heart sank. She knew she was in trouble. Grok was not one to tolerate mistakes, and she had made several during the simulation. She trudged to Grok's office, her stomach churning with anxiety. She stood outside the door, took a deep breath, and knocked. "Enter," Grok's voice rumbled. Eva stepped inside. Grok was sitting behind his desk, his eyes narrowed. "Rostova," he said, his voice cold and harsh. "Your performance in the simulation was unacceptable. You disobeyed orders, made reckless decisions, and put your team at risk." Ava opened her mouth to protest, but Grok cut her off. "Silence," he barked. "I have reviewed the data logs, and your actions were inexcusable. You failed to follow protocol, and your lack of discipline is a disgrace to this academy." Ava's face burned with shame. She knew she had made mistakes, but she had also saved her team's lives. She couldn't believe Grok was being so harsh. "I understand your concerns, Instructor Grok," she said, trying to remain calm. "But I believe my actions were justified. I made the best decisions I could under the circumstances." Grok's eyes flashed with anger. "Do not presume to question my judgment, Rostova. You are a mere cadet, and I am your superior officer. You will follow my orders without hesitation or complaint." Eva clenched her fists, her anger rising. She had had enough of Grok's arrogance and condescension. She was tired of being treated like she was inferior just because she was human. "I respect your rank, Instructor Grok," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "But I will not tolerate being disrespected. I am a soldier, not a slave." Grok stood up, his massive frame looming over her. "You dare defy me, Rostova?" "I dare to stand up for myself," Eva said, her eyes blazing with defiance. Without warning, Grok's hand shot out and struck Eva across the face. The force of the blow sent her reeling, her head snapping to the side. For a moment, Eva was stunned. She couldn't believe Grok had actually hit her. She had never been struck by an officer before, but then her anger surged back with a vengeance. She straightened her back, her eyes locking with Grok's. "You should not have done that," she said, her voice low and dangerous. Before Grok could react, Eva stepped forward and delivered a swift kick to his groin. Grok gasped in pain, his eyes widening in shock. He stumbled backwards, clutching his injured parts. Eva turned and walked out of the office, leaving Grok groaning on the floor. The other cadets stared at her in stunned silence as she marched out of the training room. They had never seen anything like it before. Eva knew she had just committed a career-ending offense. But she didn't care. She had stood up for herself, and she had no regrets. As she walked away from the academy, she knew that she was leaving behind a life she no longer wanted. She was going back to Earth, back to her family farm, back to a place where she could be herself, without having to prove herself to anyone. And as she looked up at the stars, she knew that her future was still unwritten, full of possibilities and adventures waiting to be discovered. In a distant future, humanity had ventured into the stars, spreading across many planets. On one such planet, called Novara, humans were part of a grand interspecies academy where they learned to coexist with different alien races. The academy was known for its tough curriculum and unique instructors. Among them was Zorax, an alien. From a distant galaxy known for his strict teaching style, Zorax was tall and had green skin that shimmered under the Academy's lights. His wide eyes were filled with both wisdom and a hint of humor. He was a master in combat skills and philosophy, but his patience was thin when it came to discipline. The students feared and respected him at the same time. In his class, humans were often the minority. One human cadet, named Mia, was determined to stand out. She was brave and clever, always eager to prove herself. Mia admired Zorax's expertise, but she often found herself clashing with his strict methods. She believed that rules were important, but sometimes bending them could lead to greater understanding. One warm afternoon, Zorax called the class to order. "Today we will test your reflexes and reaction times." The students shuffled in, their seats, excitement and anxiety filling the room. Mia felt a thrill run through her. She had been training hard and was ready to show what she could do. Zorax explained the exercise. "You will partner with a fellow cadet. One will throw a practice orb, and the other must catch it without using their hands. You must rely on your instincts." The room buzzed with chatter as students paired up. Mia turned to her friend, Leo, a tall, strong alien with orange skin and sharp features. "Let's team up," she said eagerly. As the practice began, Zorax observed with a calculating gaze. The students displayed a mix of skill and clumsiness. Mia and Leo were doing well. The harsh neon lights of the Xylar Academy stung Zara's eyes as she stood at attention. Sweat trickled down her back, plastering her uniform to her skin. It wasn't just the heat, it was the pressure. Zara, along with 9 other human cadets, was the first of her species to attend the prestigious Intergalactic Training Academy. Their mission was simple: prove humanity worthy of joining the Galactic Federation. Easy, right? Their instructor, a towering Krogan named Vorlag, was anything but easy. His thick, armored hide, the color of dried blood, rippled as he stalked the training hall. His 4 eyes, 2 crimson and 2 violet, scanned them with unsettling intensity. Vorlag was a legend, a veteran of countless interstellar wars, and known for his brutal training methods. He believed in breaking cadets down to build them back stronger, and he didn't care what species they were. "Today," Vorlag's gravelly voice echoed through the hall, "we will be learning close-quarters combat. You will face each other, and you will fight until I say stop." Zara gulped. She'd excelled in simulations, but this was different. This was real. Her opponent was a hulking Drell named Kalen, whose scaled skin shimmered with a faint bioluminescence. Kalen was polite enough, but Zara had seen him dismantle training bots with terrifying efficiency. "Begin!" Vorlag bellowed. Kalen lunged, his movements fluid and deadly. Zara barely managed to block his first strike, the force of it sending tremors through her arm. She stumbled back, trying to create distance, but Kalen was relentless. He pressed his advantage, forcing her to parry blow after blow. Zara realized she was outmatched in terms of raw strength and speed. She needed to use her wits. Remembering her training, Zara focused on Kalen's center of gravity, looking for an opening. She feinted left, then darted right, using her smaller size to her advantage. Kalen, momentarily off balance, left his side exposed. Zara seized the opportunity, striking with a swift kick to his ribs. Kalen grunted momentarily, stunned. Zara followed up with a series of rapid punches, targeting pressure points. Kalen staggered, but he recovered quickly, grabbing Zara's arm and twisting it behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder, and she cried out, "Yield!" Vorlag roared. Zara hesitated. Yielding meant admitting defeat, but she knew she couldn't break free from Kalen's grip. With a grimace, she forced the words out. "I yield!" Kalen released her, his expression apologetic. "Good fight, Zara," he said. Zara nodded, massaging her aching shoulder. "You too, Kalen." The training continued, with each cadet taking their turn in the ring. Some fared better than others, but Vorlag remained unimpressed. He criticized their stances, their techniques, their everything. Zara tried to ignore his taunts and focus on improving, but it was hard to stay motivated under his constant scrutiny. Finally, it was Zara's turn again. This time her opponent was Vorlag himself. Zara's heart leapt into her throat. This wasn't part of the exercise, was it? You, Vorlag growled, pointing a thick finger at Zara. You are weak. You are slow. You are a disgrace to your species. Zara stood her ground, trying to maintain eye contact. I'm trying my best, Instructor, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Vorlag chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that sent shivers down her spine. Trying is not enough. In war, there is only victory or death, and you, Cadet Zara, are destined for death. He stepped closer, his massive frame looming over her. Now, show me what you've learned, or are you going to cower like a frightened animal? Zara refused to back down. She knew she couldn't beat Vorlag in a straight fight, but she wouldn't let him intimidate her. She took a deep breath, focusing her mind. I'm ready, Instructor, she said, her voice stronger now. Vorlag smirked, and then, without warning, he struck. His open hand flashed out, catching Zara across the face. The force of the blow sent her reeling, her head snapping to the side. Pain exploded in her cheek, and she tasted blood. The other cadets gasped, stunned into silence. Vorlag had never physically struck a cadet before, especially not a human. Zara herself was in shock, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. For a moment, she just stood there, swaying slightly, her hand pressed to her burning cheek. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She looked up at Vorlag, her gaze hardening. Is that all you've got? She said, her voice dangerously low. Vorlag's smirk widened. So, the little human has some fight in her after all. Good. Now, let's see if you can back it up. He lunged again, but this time Zara was ready. Fueled by adrenaline and a burning sense of injustice, she moved with a speed and ferocity she didn't know she possessed. She ducked under Vorlag's arm, avoiding his grasp, and then, with a yell, she unleashed a flurry of strikes. She aimed for his joints, his pressure points, the weak spots in his armor. Vorlag, caught off guard by her sudden aggression, stumbled back, his eyes widening in surprise. Zara didn't let up. She pressed her attack, driving him back with a relentless barrage of blows. Finally, she saw her chance. Vorlag, momentarily off balance, left his leg exposed. Zara didn't hesitate. She drove her foot into his knee, putting all her weight behind. The blow. There was a sickening crack, and Vorlag roared in pain, collapsing to the ground. Zara stood over him, panting, her heart pounding in her chest. The other cadets stared in disbelief, their mouths agape. Vorlag, writhing on the floor, looked up at Zara with a mixture of pain and grudging respect. Impressive, he grunted, but this is not over. Zara didn't reply. She simply turned and walked away, heading for the exit. Where do you think you're going, Cadet? Vorlag demanded. Zara stopped at the doorway, turning back to face him. I'm leaving, she said, her voice clear and steady. I'm not going to stay here and be abused by you or anyone else. You can't leave, Vorlag exclaimed. You'll be dishonoring your species. You'll be proving that humans are weak and unworthy. Zara shook her head. No, she said. I'm proving that humans have self-respect, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me. With that, she turned and walked out of the training hall, leaving Vorlag and the other cadets in stunned silence. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she had made the right decision. She had stood up for herself and for her species, And that, she realized, was more important than anything else. In a distant future, Earth had formed an alliance with multiple alien species, one of the most prestigious places for training cadets. From different planets was the Intergalactic Academy of Peace. It was here that young beings learned about cooperation, diplomacy, and the art of combat. The head instructor of the academy was an alien known as Zalthor, a tall, green-skinned being with 5 arms and bright yellow eyes. Zalthor was famous for his strict yet effective teaching methods, and rumors ran wild about how he kept his students in line. Among the cadets was Mia, a fiercely determined human girl. She had always dreamed of becoming a diplomat to represent Earth in the intergalactic meetings. Mia was intelligent and hardworking, but her journey in the academy had been challenging. She often found it difficult to balance her human emotions with the logical thinking demanded by the academy. Still, she remained steadfast, knowing that she had a great responsibility ahead of her. On a particularly warm morning, Mia walked into the training hall, where Zalthor would conduct a class focusing on the importance of teamwork. The walls were adorned with ancient paintings of alien history, while the air buzzed with anticipation. As she took her place among the other cadets, she noticed an uneasiness in the room. Cadets from different planets whispered among themselves, their eyes darting toward Zalthor, who stood at the front with his arms crossed. "Today," Zalthor began, his voice deep and commanding, "we will test your ability to work in groups regardless of differences." Mia felt excitement mixed with dread. She was paired with 2 other cadets, Jax, a quick-witted alien from the planet Jark, and Lila, a strong and wise being from the forest of Eldra. They were both experienced and skilled, but Mia feared she might hold them back. The instructor gave them a scenario where their team had to negotiate peace between 2 warring planets. He gave each group specific challenges to solve. The goal was to build understanding and find common ground between the opponents. At first, things went well. Mia contributed ideas about empathy and how sharing stories could bridge gaps. Jax brought humor into the conversation, while Lila used her wisdom to provide solutions based on past experiences. But then something unexpected happened. Zalthor began to walk around observing each group. As he approached Mia's team, he noticed that they seemed too relaxed. This did not please him. "This is not a game," Zalthor warned, his voice rising slightly. "You must take this seriously if you wish to succeed in this galaxy." Mia felt a surge of determination and emphasized the need for urgency. "We need to show both sides that peace is the only way forward," she argued, her heart racing. But Zalthor frowned, sensing something off about her conviction. "Talk is cheap, human cadet," Zalthor said sharply. "Do not confuse emotion with strategy." Mia's cheeks blazed with embarrassment. She felt Zalthor was belittling the very core of what she stood for, her empathy and passion for peace. The other cadets shifted uncomfortably, waiting to see how this confrontation would unfold. "I understand strategy, but we cannot forget the feelings of those we talk to," Mia shot back, her voice steady despite her nerves. The harsh fluorescent lights of the xenological combat training room buzzed, a stark contrast to the alien landscape simulations projected onto the far wall. Cadet Anya Petrova stood ramrod straight, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. Sweat trickled down her spine, clinging uncomfortably to the synthetic fabric of her uniform. This was it, her final evaluation in Xenotactics 1001. Before her loomed Instructor Xylar, a towering figure of chitin and muscle from the planet Cathar. His 4 eyes, arranged in a disconcerting vertical pattern, seemed to bore into her soul. Xylar was known for his brutal honesty and unforgiving standards. He had a reputation for breaking cadets, pushing them to their absolute limits, all in the name of preparing them for the realities of interstellar warfare. Around Anya, her fellow cadets stood in tense silence. There was Sergeant Miller, a gruff veteran who had surprisingly enrolled in the course to sharpen his skills. Then there was the ever-optimistic Ensign Chen, who always tried to see the best in everyone, even Instructor Xylar. And finally, there was Lieutenant Sharma, a brilliant strategist known for her cool demeanor under pressure. All of them were watching, waiting to see if Anya would pass or become another statistic in Xylar's long list of failures. "Cadet Petrova!" Xylar's voice resonated through the room, a deep rumble that vibrated in Anya's chest. "The scenario is as follows. You are the leader of a small reconnaissance team on the planet Zilth. You have encountered a scouting party of the krill, a hostile insectoid species known for their relentless aggression. Your mission is to gather intelligence on their numbers and weaponry and escape without engaging in direct combat. Explain your strategy." Anya took a deep breath, trying to ignore the tremor in her hands. "Sir, my primary objective would be reconnaissance and evasion. We would utilize stealth tactics, employing camouflage and minimizing our energy signatures to avoid detection. We would prioritize gathering visual and sensor data on the krill forces, focusing on their numbers, formations, and the types of weapons they are carrying." She continued, outlining her plan in detail, referencing xenobiological data on krill sensory perception and their weaknesses. She explained how she would use the terrain to her advantage, setting up diversionary tactics if necessary, and prioritizing the safety of her team above all else. Xylar listened impassively, his multifaceted eyes betraying nothing. When she finished, a long silence hung in the air. Anya could feel the weight of his gaze, scrutinizing her every word, every gesture. Finally, Xylar spoke, his voice dripping with disdain. "Your plan is adequate. It demonstrates a basic understanding of tactical principles and krill behavior. However," he paused, his chitinous claws clicking together, "it lacks aggression. It lacks the killer instinct necessary to survive in a real combat situation." Anya frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, the mission parameters specifically stated that we were to avoid direct combat. My priority is to gather intelligence and ensure the survival of my team." Xylar took a step closer, his imposing figure looming over her. "Survival is not always guaranteed, Cadet. Sometimes the only way to survive is to strike first, to eliminate the threat before it eliminates you. You must be willing to make the difficult choices, to sacrifice everything for the mission." He then threw a curveball. "Let's assume, Cadet, that your team is discovered. The krill are closing in. You have a single grenade, capable of eliminating the entire scouting party. Do you use it?" Anya hesitated. The scenario was designed to test her moral compass as much as her tactical skills. Using the grenade would guarantee her team's survival, but it would also violate the mission parameters and potentially escalate the conflict. "Sir," she said slowly, "I would assess the situation. If the krill posed an immediate and unavoidable threat to my team's lives, I would use the grenade as a last resort. However, I would first attempt to evade and disengage, utilizing all available means to avoid direct confrontation." Xylar's eyes narrowed. "You hesitate. You doubt. In war, hesitation is death." Suddenly, without warning, Xylar's claw shot out and slapped Anya across the face. The force of the blow sent her stumbling backward, her head ringing. A collective gasp swept through the room. No one had ever seen Xylar physically strike a cadet before. Anya's cheek burned with the sting of the blow. She stared at Xylar, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. For a moment, she was paralyzed, unsure of how to react. But then, something snapped within her. Years of rigorous training, of pushing herself to the limit, of enduring countless hardships, all coalesced into a single, burning ember of defiance. She straightened her posture, meeting Xylar's gaze with unwavering intensity. "That," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "was uncalled for, Instructor." Xylar sneered. Disrespect will not be tolerated, Cadet. You will apologize for your insubordination. Anya didn't flinch. I will not. I understand the importance of discipline, but physical assault is not an acceptable form of instruction. The room fell silent once more. Everyone watched, their breath held, as the two figures locked eyes in a silent battle of wills. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then, Anya did the unthinkable. She stepped forward, closed the distance between them, and slapped Xylar across the face with the same force he had used on her. The sound echoed through the room, sharp and clear. Xylar recoiled, his 4 eyes widening in astonishment. No one had ever dared to strike him, let alone a lowly human cadet. Before Xylar could react, Anya spoke, her voice ringing with authority. I resign. I will not serve under an officer who abuses his authority and resorts to violence. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked out of the xenological combat training room, leaving Xylar and the rest of the cadets in stunned silence. Sergeant Miller was the first to break the silence. He started clapping, slowly at first, then with increasing enthusiasm. Soon, Ensign Chen and Lieutenant Sharma joined in, their applause filling the room. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a human cadet standing up to an alien instructor, refusing to be broken and leaving him speechless. Xylar stood there, his chitinous face a mask of bewildered fury. He had expected fear, obedience, submission. He had not expected defiance, and certainly not physical retaliation. As Anya walked away, she knew she had made a difficult decision. She had sacrificed her career, her dreams of serving in the interstellar fleet, but she had also preserved her integrity, her sense of self-worth, and in that moment, she knew she had done the right thing. News of the incident spread like wildfire through the academy. Some condemned Anya's actions as insubordinate and reckless. Others hailed her as a hero, a symbol of human courage and resilience. But one thing was certain. Anya Petrova had left a lasting impact on the xenological combat training program, forcing everyone to question the methods and ethics of their instructors. And in the end, that may have been the most important lesson of all. Once upon a time, in a distant future, human beings had made contact with many alien species. Among them was a strict but wise alien instructor named Zarnok. Zarnok belonged to the race known as the Vilaxians, known for their bright green skin and 3 eyes, which allowed them to see in all directions. They were highly intelligent and feared for their unique methods of teaching. Zarnok taught at the Galactic Academy, a school where species from all over the universe came to learn together. One sunny day in the academy, a group of cadets gathered in the large classroom made of transparent material that gave a view of the sparkling stars, making the place feel more magical. Among the cadets was a young human named Leo. He was eager and excited about learning, although he sometimes struggled with following rules. As the class began, Zarnok entered with a commanding presence. He looked over the students, his 3 eyes scanning each face. Today we will discuss the art of strategy, he said with a deep, rumbling voice. It requires discipline, focus, and respect. If you do not have these, you will fail. Leo listened carefully, but he was also daydreaming about becoming a great hero one day, fighting alongside brave commanders. Zarnok set up a complex problem on the holographic board. Your mission, he announced, is to capture the enemy's base while protecting your own. This requires teamwork and clever strategies. Everyone started to discuss their ideas, but Leo had another plan in mind. He interrupted his classmates, eager to share his opinion, but Zarnok raised a hand. Leo, do you want to lead this exercise? Zarnok asked with narrowed eyes. Leo beamed, thinking this was his moment to shine. Yes, I have an amazing plan, he exclaimed. Very well. But remember, the fate of the mission rests on your shoulders, Zarnok warned. With this challenge, Leo felt a rush of confidence. He began explaining his bold strategy, but the details quickly turned jumbled due to his excitement. His classmates looked confused, and some snickered quietly. With a flick of his wrist, Zarnok silenced the class. "Leo, are you listening to yourself?" Leo's smile faded as Zarnok's 3 eyes bored into him. "Your idea lacks structure. It is messy, and you are losing the respect of your peers." The room went silent. The other cadets felt the tension, unsure of how Leo would react. I can fix it. Just give me a moment," Leo stammered, feeling embarrassed. But Zarnok's patience was thin. "Enough!" Zarnok shouted, and without a moment's hesitation,